What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Capitalize Podcast. As always, it's Chris here with Grant. And today we're going to be talking about construction draws and just generally how we treat the rehab budget for a loan. So if you think about a hard money loan, one of the main questions that I get as a hard money lender is, how do you handle rehab? And when you think about a closing, we will offer a certain amount for purchase, a certain amount for rehab. And at the closing table, we will wire money, the purchase amount at closing. And what we'll do is we'll hold back a rehab budget, a construction reserve in an escrow account, non-interest bearing, and we will distribute that throughout the course of the loan as work is completed. And so we have a whole process behind that. There's a few different things that we could talk about there, but that's what Grant and I wanted to talk about today. And I guess another important piece here too is, when you work with us at Sharper Capital, we have, I handle a lot of the underwriting. Grant handles primarily the portfolio management piece. So you'll be working with both of us throughout the course of the loan for different parts of the process. Grant handles most of the portfolio management. He handles most of the construction draws. So I want to let him talk about a lot of the steps that we take to handle that part.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a little bit now, Chris, and the construction draw piece is extremely important. Not just for us, to mitigate the risk in the way we do things, but for our clients to be able to pay their subs and their GCs as quickly as possible to keep them working. Because, the last thing you want to do is, be slow in payment and risk, a subcontractor going and taking a job somewhere else or just not being satisfied with their experience overall. So we take a lot of pride in making sure that we get payment quickly over to our clients, and it is possible to. We have seen in the past where, it's possible to pay a GC directly if that's easier, if you're working solely with one GC. But typically we're trying to get these construction draw done in, 48 hours or less. That includes going out, inspecting the property, pretty much on day one. If it's early enough, we could ACH the funds then. But then thereafter, we'll usually ACH the funds out the next day if that's the case. So we use same day ACH for everything. Some people do wires, but we found that same day ACH works best for us, just in the simplicity of how everything's set up and how we set up our loan docs. But the general process for going through and requesting funds to be dispersed for your specific construction draw is, let's say you have a project and it needs $100,000 in work. Like Chris said, we typically divide that up into 5 different disbursements. So, each disbursement would be $20,000 as $100,000 divided by 5 disbursements. And then, from there, you would go through the process. You being the client would go through and say, okay, well, I'm going to put $20,000 of work. I'm going to send over receipts for materials and invoices, either paid in full or invoices that are coming due for contractors and subs. And then from there, we're going to send an inspector out once we get those from you via email or from our web form. And we're going to go out and inspect the work, make sure the materials, and this is really important, that the materials are installed, not just on site, but installed, because we don't want to run into a situation where perhaps materials, are on site, but for some reason they get returned, but we, ACH funds for materials that were on site but not installed. And so it can just lead to a lot of confusion, miscommunication. So materials and work needs to be completed or mostly completed and installed. And then, once it's inspected, we'll come back, give the approval, and funds will be sent out same day ACH. So really is a simple process. It's designed for speed. All of our loan products are designed for, speed, simplicity, and, to be reliable and consistent. But, those are just the general things, about construction draws and how our processes work.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, the reason that construction draws are handled the way that they are, and this is pretty standard across the board for most hard money lenders, is because the biggest risk that you run when thinking specifically about the construction draws as a lender is being over budget, right? Basically going past your skis and lending too much, lending for work that hasn't been completed. And, there are horror stories out there. We've experienced some stuff ourselves where people will request a construction draw and say that they're doing the work on the property, but really they just need money for maybe another project that they have. Maybe it's just OpEx. Maybe they're just short on cash. And so the main focus for us, in addition, to making sure that the system and the process is clear and consistent and reliable for the client, is, okay, we want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and that we're not overextending. And so that's where, to your point, Grant, we want to make sure that all the materials are installed, all the work has actually been done. We're going to send somebody out there to take photos, take videos, make sure that everything is as as our clients are saying it is, because that's really the most important piece.
Right. And, we have to run this, I always talk to clients and I kind of reiterate to them, like, think of us as like the capital raise arm for your business, because we're raising private capital. We're raising capital from other individuals who have money in their self-directed IRA or their high net worth individual, things like that. And, we have to be able to communicate, and we have to be responsible for, how their money is being deployed. So going through and making sure that materials and everything are, not just on site, but installed. That includes appliances and things like that. It's what we have to do to make sure that we're keeping our investors secure, while also making sure that, we're expediting the process as quickly as possible for the client. And I think a lot of clients, at first, if they haven't worked with a hard money lender, it seems like the process could be a little bit arduous, but really it's not all that complicated. You're just, you're simply just keeping track of your receipts. A lot of people just have, they're buying all their materials either from Lowe's or Home Depot or a mix of the two. And, they're basically just aggregating all that stuff. Every single digital receipt they get, they just save it as a PDF into, a Google Drive folder. And, any invoices they receive from their GCs or subs, they're just throwing those into a folder too. And then once it totals, close to 20,000 in this case, or maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, they'll come to us and go, hey, can we get construction draw number 2? We'll go, abso-freaking-lutely, and go out there and just get people in there to look at the property. And like I said, same day ACH, money shows up in your account, usually, later that day or the day after. So our goal is always to be 48 hours or less. That's our goal. So that's the high and low over there.
90% of the time, I think this is really important, and you touched on this, 90% of the time, the process is super simple. I mean, on our end, the only time we will ever go digging or we have to take an extra step is if there's something missing, right? Like if all the receipts don't add up to the amount that's being requested. And we'll have a conversation. Part of my underwriting process is, hey, send me your scope of work and let's try to figure out generally how many draws we want to break this project up into and how much you're expecting each draw to be, the amount that you want the draw to be. So, the example that you used earlier, you're doing $100,000 worth of work, you get 5 draws of $20,000 each. Okay, what comprises that $20,000? We can be flexible. I mean, we lay it out so that things can be simple and that we're on the same page with our clients and that our clients know what to expect from us. We know what to expect from our clients. But the reality is, throughout the project, it's not going to be perfect, and that's totally okay. The most important piece is, you as the investor, whoever's listening to this, is keeping track of things very meticulously, as you should be anyways, right? It's not something that you should be doing for us necessarily. It's something you should be doing for your own investment business.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. And one of the things we're doing in the underwriting process is, we understand, there is a degree of organization required when working with hard money lenders. And so we're always going through the underwriting process, and we talk about the 4 C's that we underwrite. And whether this falls under character or experience, I don't know which, but it really comes down to is this person going to be able to manage the construction funds appropriately so that they can get achieve the ARV that they're headed to, and also document everything, because like you said, you should be tracking those expenses anyways. You need to know how much money you have into these deals and how. And, if you're on track, or if you're going to start eating into your contingencies that you might have accrued for on your own. So one of the other points, probably worth making there has to do with the last construction draw that you'll be requesting. And a pretty common policy for almost all hard money lenders is, you're not going to be able to get your last construction draw unless it's the final completed work on the property, meaning whether your strategy is to rent it out and refinance it or you're ready to put it on the market and fix and flip it, you're not going to be able to get that construction draw until the final work is completed. The reason for that is because lenders don't want to walk into a property or make a final disbursement on a property when they think, okay, if we make all of our, in theory, the way we loan our money is if we disperse all of our funds, the ARV of the property should be here. And that means all the work was done to get it there. Well, if all the work isn't done to get it there, then we're not going to achieve that ARV. So we can't deploy all that money. So with that last disbursement, the property has to be ready to go. It has to be rent ready. It has to be ready to sell if that's the exit strategy. And just something to think of when you're going through a property, because if you have contingencies pop up, you might have to take care of some of those during the project. And, I know I'm kind of going on a long bit here, but something else to note is, the funds that you receive aren't going to be upfront, meaning if you're going to spend, in the case of, if the rehab budget is $100,000 and you're going to get 5 disbursements of $20,000 to get there, you're going to spend those $20,000 on your own. You're going to spend those $20,000 first, and then you're going to get reimbursed for those when that work's been completed. Now, there are instances where you might have some, shorter terms with your subs or your GCs, and, we can get you funds sent before the invoices need to be actually paid. That's stuff we've done before because we can turn around payments so quickly. But in terms of materials, what people will do oftentimes is just run up a bill on their credit card, and then before the statement ever even comes due, we're coming in with the funds to get those materials that have been installed, paid for, as well as the subs and the GCs, who have, payment due. But a lot of times, investors are going to have to use their own cash to bridge that gap. I mean, really think of it as like you're being reimbursed for the money you spent, not necessarily that you're getting preemptive cash to pay for things that have not been done, whether it's materials or whatnot.
Yeah, that's really important. And it's one of the conversations that I have a lot with investors who call us who are looking for funding. Is one thing we talk about a lot is we want to set everybody up for success, right? Despite contrary belief, or contrary to popular belief, we do not want to own properties. And we also want the borrower, the clients, to win. And so a big piece of that is how much cash do they have to be able to do the deal. And it's not just having the amount that they need for purchase, just having the down payment. It's not even just having, the cash to close, including points and closing costs. It's also having a little bit of contingency cash, because while a credit card is a viable option, and it might even be a better option because you're getting some points and rewards, you get a Home Depot credit card and you're going to get paid to spend money there basically. It's not something that you want to lean on because things can go over budget quickly. Credit isn't always a sure thing. And so you want to make sure that you have enough cash there as a cushion to feel comfortable throughout the project. And, like you said, Grant, you never know what's going to pop up, and you just always want a little bit of you want a little bit of a cushion. And that's a big consideration, is the rehab that you're going to have to do yourself, especially on bigger projects. If we're doing less draws but bigger disbursements, maybe you don't even have enough credit to be able to cover part of that rehab that you're doing before you get reimbursed. So you just want to make sure that you have plenty of room to work.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you never want cash to be the reason that you're not able to move through the project. Hard money is not a replacement for all the cash you will need. You know what I mean? It's I think a lot of times people go like, oh, I don't have any money to do this deal, but it is a good deal. I'm just going to use hard money for the whole thing. And unfortunately, that's just not what it's for. It's really meant to increase your, cash on cash return. And it's meant to require for you to put less of your own money into the deal than you otherwise would. And also close quickly and simply, as opposed to working with, a lender that might have more red tape. So yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing when it comes to construction draws is just to make sure that you're organized, and the easier it is for you to communicate the work that's been completed, the faster that you'll get the funds dispersed to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really can, like you said, it can be a very simple process, so long as the bookkeeping and the records on both sides are clean and organized.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. That's all we have for you today. If you have any questions about the construction draw process for Harmony Loans, feel free to reach out. You can always reach out to us via email. We'll drop our general email down in the description below, or you can check us out at sharpercapitalpartners.com. Look forward to seeing you.